12 o'clock on your Wednesday afternoon now. Welcome in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Terry Ford will be along here in just a moment as we got a lot to dive into over the course of the next couple of hours, talking some spring practice. Heard from assistants yesterday. We'll get some of their thoughts on what they've seen through the first couple days. Again, not a whole lot of headline news as of right now in reference to spring practice, which is a good thing, I guess, especially, considering the fact that you don't have any injuries or anything like that to report. Vakari Swain was having some academic issues. That's kind of the only notable thing that I think we've gotten out of spring practice so far. And I know, the media, Gamecock Central, will be able to be out there tomorrow morning to once again observe a practice and kind of get a lay of the land of how things have changed over the course of a week. And we can dive into all those specifics, coming up tomorrow and see what we have learned in just a week's time. So we'll get you some Furry, get some Marquel Blackwell as well as Torian Gray a little bit later on in the show. But unfortunately, we have to start off with what happened last night up the road in Charlotte at Truist Field, home of the Charlotte Knights, as the Gamecocks once again face a ranked team and once again fall. For the fourth game in a row, giving up double digits in the process, they end up falling 13-8 to North Carolina, the number 21 team in the country, up there in Charlotte last night. If you're looking for a small positive, you were more competitive. You scored 8 runs, which in a lot of instances, scoring 8 runs should allow you to win a lot of games, but that was not the case for South Carolina, as and what ended up being a bullpen night, which we knew was going to be the case, likely because Jarvis Evans had to be used on Sunday when Dylan Eskew, of course, got hit in the head with a ball in the bullpen from batting practice on Saturday. Didn't wake up feeling good on Sunday, so they scratched him. He's in concussion protocol, and we'll see what the future or what his possible status is going forward, hopefully here soon. But you knew when Jarvis Evans had to pitch in his spot on Sunday, which he did a decent job, solid job, especially considering the fact that he was on relatively short rest at that point in time, you knew you were going to have to go Johnny Holstaff last night. And we throw around the term Johnny Holstaff a lot. It literally was Johnny Holstaff. There is very few pitchers on your roster that did not get out there on the mound last night. 12 different guys threw 9 innings, threw pitches last night, and unfortunately it was not good enough. There's a lot of reasons why, but one that you really kind of focus in on is the fact that he gave up 13 free passes, 11 walks last night, 2 hit batters. Keep in mind, 52 batters came to the plate for North Carolina last night. 13 of them were given free passes. A fourth of the batters that you faced were given free bases. And obviously they made you pay for it by scoring 13 runs. Again, and much like almost an exact script of what we saw on Sunday and something that we've seen consistently throughout the year, you have a tight game in the 8th inning. Give it to South Carolina for putting together a strong 6th and 7th inning and tying the game up, because they were down 8-3 at one point in the top of the 6th after a 2 RBI single for North Carolina. Come back there, you score 4 runs in the bottom of the 6th, go out there and get a couple more runs get another run off the Hollins RBI in top of 7th, and boom, tie ball game. And I thought Jack kind of positioned it perfectly last night, that because he's there covering the game, obviously, at about 10 o'clock on the money last night, he makes the tweet that, hey, Bo Hollins hits the RBI and it ties the game up at 8. Inning comes to an end right after that with Gaskin striking out. Russell takes the mound for the top of the 8th, and he said within 7 minutes, so between 10 o'clock and 10:07, you went from being tied to being down 8-10 with 2-run homer that Russell gave up. And then I don't know how long the inning lasted time-wise, but by the time you got to the end of that inning, you were down 13-8. And that was just not a hole you could dig yourself out of. Nothing really happened much in the bottom of the 8th, and obviously weren't able to get anything in the bottom of the 9th either, as South Carolina once again falls. And look, it's frustrating. It's really frustrating. And I don't know, maybe we set the expectations for this team too high going into the season. And look, I don't know if anybody expected them to be a national championship favorite necessarily, but through 10 games against ranked opponents, 6 of those in conference play, by the way, you expect to be better than 1-9, right? Like I don't know where you would have put that win total at. Optimistically, maybe 4, maybe 5. But 1, that's just unacceptable. and you're putting yourself in position to fall into a pretty big hole very quickly here because I don't know if you've checked the schedule. The number one team, the defending national champions, are coming into your barn this weekend to play you. And, yes, it is a road game, which is never going to be easy, but, man, they might come in here and run you out of the town. You know what I mean? And that would continue. That'd put you further in a hole. At that point in time, if you get swept by them, you're 1-12 against conference opponents. You'd be 1-8 in conference play. And we talk about those magic numbers of being around, 12, 13, 15 wins or whatever to get yourself in the postseason. That's getting farther and farther away. You got to start winning these games. Now, again, you were more competitive last night because you put up 8 runs, but your pitching just completely falls apart in late innings, where that's something we thought was a strength of this team. Early in the season, we talked so much about how good the bullpen was in locking things down those last couple innings, albeit that was against mid-major competition, the Morehead States and the Sacred Hearts and those kind of things. So I think we all took it with a little bit of grain of salt, but you liked what you saw. But, man, when you've gotten in these ranked games, that's where the wheels come off, and it happened once again last night against North Carolina.
Tyler, we saw cracks in the bullpen in the Clemson series, remember?
Yeah.
And we were sitting around because our focus was so much on the offense, right?
Sure.
In the Clemson series. But if you looked at every one of those games, the bullpen gave up late runs.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, let's hope this is not going to be the trend. And this bullpen is just, it struggled. I mean, look, there's a long line of struggling going on here.
Sure.
But the bullpen's been scuffling and struggling late in games. I mean, you score 8 runs, you should win the game.
Most games, yeah.
Let's just be honest here. Offense last night, yeah, and look, I give them a ton of props. You're down 8-3. You're coming off of getting swept, and they kept grinding, and they tied the game. So that tells you, hey, no one's given up yet, but you get to 8-8, and what happens? Walk, home run, all your momentum's gone. And you look up again, all of a sudden, now you're not even down by 2. And you know this. You've watched a lot of baseball and played. It's limit the damage. Limit the damage.
Going up to bat in the top or bottom of one of the late innings, you're down by 1 or 2 runs. Okay, I see our feasible path to knock this number down and get back in this game. When it's 5 or 6, you're like, ugh, it's over.
Right, because you think about it. If you're down by 2 or 3, all right, you're down by 2, obviously get a base runner. What do they call it? A bloop and a blast.
Yeah.
Even if you're down 3, get a couple guys on, or even if you hit a solo homer, now all of a sudden, woo, we're a base runner away from bringing the tying run to the plate.
I would say you never want to be at the plate thinking the tying run is sitting somewhere on the other end of the bench right now.
The 7th guy
Yeah.
blowing bubbles. But unfortunately, because of these bullpen issues, this is what you've been getting. And it's just been a rough go. Especially last night, that was, Johnny All-Staff, whatever you want to call it.
It literally was the whole staff.
And you knew it was going to happen because of what happened with Dylan Eskew.
Yep.
So you knew this was going to happen, but like, Paul Maneri said, we were hoping to get some zeros. You didn't get too many zeros, unfortunately.
Sweeney actually had zeros in the first inning.
Yeah.
But again, the plan was, okay, we're just going to rotate guy after guy after guy. And I don't know, if you stuck with him a little bit longer, does last night change? I don't know. But yeah, obviously what ended up happening was not pretty.
No, and when you sit here now and you just look at this baseball team, Nathan Hall has been phenomenal. Ethan Petrie's been really good. And besides that, offensively, you've had a mixed bag, right?
Yep.
Pitching-wise, Dylan Eskew, Tyler Pitzer, Marlott, Evans. That's about it, man. I mean, and besides that, you got some ugly ERAs when you drop into this deal. Sweeney's at a 9-run ERA. His whip is over 2 right now. And Roman Kimball is almost a 5.5 ERA with a whip of over 2.
And look, the guy that you thought was potentially your best pitcher after seeing, a couple weeks of play in Brandon Stone, he's been so-so in his 2 starts.
Yeah, and Matthew Becker has forgotten how to throw strikes.
Everybody forgot how to throw strikes last night.
Last night, 13 base runners, 11 walks, 2 hit batters.
A fourth of the guys you allowed to the plate last night got a free pass.
I mean, obviously that's not what you're looking for. I don't think that Coach Rooney goes, all right, fellas, you've been throwing strikes. We got to put a stop to that. We got to throw more balls. No, I mean, it's just the command has been off, getting behind in counts, walking hitters, getting to your point where you got to throw. You can't throw quality strikes. You got to throw get it over strikes. Matthew Becker right now is a 6.65 ERA and his WHIP is 1.56. And take away his first 2 starts, which were very good. Look at those numbers. It's just mind-boggling.
And as you get deeper into the season, again, it's not like these guys are trying to go out there and do this. They're trying to throw strikes. They're trying to get batters out. They're trying to not allow balls to be put in play. And it's not just going to be a sudden thing where Terry Rooney walks out there and says, you know what, guys, we're going to pitch better today. And they say, didn't think about that. Let's do it.
Wow.
Yeah. Like
throwing strikes?
There is something fundamental here that's happening with your entire pitching staff at this point that I don't know if you need to correct, but you got to address it.
You've given up double-digit runs in, 4 straight games?
Yes.
Team ERA now is sitting at 4.26. Your WHIP's 1.34. I mean, and that's not breaking it down SEC, non-SEC, or playing your numbers against ranked teams compared to the mid-majors you've been beating. So it's just, look, they're winning all the games they should win, but the games against real competition, they're getting smacked around right now.
And credit, you won 1 game against Oklahoma. You had a chance to win another one. You
should have won
it.
2.
And again, you've been in a lot of these games, but you can't close the deal.
No, I mean, Arkansas steamrolled you. Besides that, you've been right there. You were there last night.
Yeah.
You came back and tied the game at 8, and then you gave up a 5 spot. And you can almost hear it in Maneri's voice, right?
He's not as jovial as he once was.
No, and it feels like remember the Clemson series? Like, look, the SEC is what matters. How's that going? And it's just, I really believe that I'm not going to say, I don't think at this point he's so experienced that he's shocked is not the right word. I think he is more like, wow, I didn't see this coming.
Did he overestimate his talent or underestimate the league?
Can you be both?
Maybe.
Or did he, and here's another one, did he overestimate his ability to come in here and just with the fact that has such a good track record, he'll get this thing fixed just because he knows what's up?
And I brought this up earlier because, again, let's go back to last summer when I moved on from Kingston. We heard all the names, Cliff Godwin from ECU and all that kind of stuff. If he gets brought in here and he's having these same kind of results, I don't think not that we're not as critical, but we kind of give it a pass of not quite a pass, but saying, you know what? First year in the SEC, first year at South Carolina, it's going to be rocky. Let's give it some time. But again, when Maneri comes in with the reputation and resume, we expect him to hit the ground running and be successful right out of the gate.
Sure. I mean, he was expecting it.
Yeah, that's what he put out there.
Remember,
like, hey, this isn't a long-term thing. We're coming in here, we're trying to get to Omaha day 1.
Yeah, we're not here to rebuild, but almost you're looking at, wow, you might be kind of here to rebuild.
And again, he took over a program that was in a regional last year that played in a super 2 years ago. This wasn't like a Carolina program that had never seen the postseason since Ray Tanner left.
No, this team is worse this year easily than last year's team.
Feels that way.
And, and you're sitting here going, well, let's see. Yeah, there's turnover every year now in collegiate athletics, but you have enough holdovers from last year. I mean, you lost Cole Messina, obviously.
Yeah, but that's big.
That's a huge loss because you're not getting the same production at all offensively than you got from Cole Messina. But you're not, it's not like this thing was a total, oh my God, it's hit rock bottom, somebody's got to come rebuild it. No, it was a team, like you said, made the postseason last year. And you would figure that they would be with a coach who has had a huge amount of success. This wouldn't be going on right now.
Yeah. And again, it's easy to talk about this in the moment, and God, by the end of the season, we'll be telling a completely different story of a turnaround and a Maneri team getting better in the back half of the season. But right now, this sucks since it's not fun.
Well, thank God you don't have like the number 1 team in the country coming in this weekend.
Got bad news for you, Ter.
What?
Number 1 team in the country is coming in this weekend.
Ooh. We might want to go to break now and reevaluate, reassess. Probably. All right. And by the way, you can hear those games. Friday, you will hear the South Carolina-Tennessee game on our sister station, 98.5 WOMG. Rest of the weekend, though, you'll hear it right here on 107.5 The Game. We'll get into all that, trust me. It's a halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, we're rolling up until 3. We will talk more baseball next on The Game.
And welcome back in. It's halftime show. Tyler Ed and Terry Ford along with you on your Wednesday here on the game. Talking Gamecock baseball. Obviously, last night did not net out the result that any of us wanted. Wanted to see the team get back on track this weekend against Tennessee. Your next opportunity also to win the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. Pot currently at $275, goes up by $25 each and every game. Go online to 1075game.com to register if you've not already. And maybe this weekend will be the weekend where you hit a Grand Slam, and that'd probably go a long way if you're going to potentially pick up a victory against the best team and the defending national champs.
We have had a couple slams.
We've had a couple. We've come close as well. The Gamecocks are really good at loading the bases.
Well, last night,
driving in those runners, a little bit of a different story.
Almost had one. Henry hit the wall last night.
Listen, the ball was flying last night. You know, a couple weeks ago, we were saying, it's too cold. It's not time yet. It was 73 degrees last night up there in Charlotte. Ball was flying all over the place.
Yeah, because they got the bases loaded, and then it's like deep fly ball.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
And I'm trying not to be pessimistic here, but when they get the bases loaded, and it was Kazmar that hit that two-run RBI, you almost kind of wonder of how this is going to go wrong. Okay, somebody get hit into a double play. Are we just going to strike out from here on out? Like, what's going to go wrong here where we're going to waste this bases-loaded opportunity? Now, again, they capitalized, got a lot of runners off across the plate, but we've seen them leave the bases loaded plenty of times this year.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just you are getting that way. And we talk about this during basketball season. The last thing you want is for that feeling to get into your dugout.
Yes.
Well, okay, what's going to happen next? What's going to screw this up? Especially because we always talk about how baseball is such a superstitious game.
Oh, totally. And you're talking to Mr. Superstition.
You're the king of superstition. It's just the idea that you start to feel, okay, what's going to go wrong? We got bad luck.
And when you're at the plate and the bases are loaded, and you're like, okay, don't let it be me. Don't let it be. Don't let me strike out. Don't let me hit it right back to the pitcher. Don't let me do this, do that. Like, that's a real thing. That is the psyche of a baseball player that can be affected.
Oh, yeah. Like, I remember I was a kid, came up bases loaded, first time like in my life I can remember. And, you know, I got a 75 hop ground ball base hit between, like, you know, the second baseman and the first baseman.
Yep.
You know, to me, I was like, all right, I'll bat with the bases loaded now, baby. Let's go.
Sure.
But if I would have struck out, it would have been like, I don't want to come back up here again with the bases loaded ever in my life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just the idea that, yeah, I mean, if you continue to fail over and over again in big moments, it's very difficult to keep that out of your head that you're failing in big moments.
Sure.
And so last night, down 8-3, got the bases loaded. Kazmar hits that ball off the wall. I thought it was going to be another grand slam.
I did too.
And you're like, okay. And then after that, you tie the game. Hollins, I tell you, Hollins has been nice this year for them as a freshman.
Come along well.
Yeah, and he's hitting 283.
He's solidified first base.
Yeah, on base percentage about 380. He's doing a nice job. But, you know, once, you know, you get Henry gets his double, Hollins gets the knock to tie the game, you're like, they've come back from the dead. All right. And then, of course, Stevenson hits the 2-run homer, and you're like, okay. And I was listening to it, I could feel the air being sucked out of the speaker in my car.
It's deflating.
Yeah. So, just a tough go last night. Paul Mainieri talking to the media post-game. Once again, the 8th inning did the Gamecocks in. Let's get cut 26, Tyler. Here's Coach Mainieri talking about that 8th inning.
Well, obviously, it was disappointing. You know, we had a great comeback there and tied the game, had the good potential go-ahead run at second base. You know, one more hit, we take the lead, and, you know, we'll see if we can hold it probably. But I only wanted to use Brandon Stone for the 9th inning today because, you know, he pitched on Friday, started that game, and, you know, we need him obviously for this Friday, you know, whether we start him or use him out of the pen. But, you know, if we'd have taken the lead, I probably would have brought him in the 8th inning there and tried to hold the lead with him for 2 innings. But when we didn't, you know, and the game was tied, you know, the plan was to use all these different guys because we were shorthanded with Eskew being hurt, you know, and, you know, we were hoping we'd get a bunch of shutout innings for 1 inning from a bunch of different guys. Unfortunately, we only got 3 shutout innings out of 9. And, you know, we come back, fight back, tie the game, and then walk the leadoff hitter on 4 pitches and in the 8th inning. And, you know, you just can't do that against good teams.
No, I mean, you can't put 13 runners on base against any team.
Ideally, no.
It just, And that's the one thing. If you're a coach, you can hear it in his voice. I mean, if you're a coach, the one thing that drives you insane is self-inflicted wounds, man. Drives you nuts, right?
Yeah.
Because it's one thing if they're just better than you and they're just, ripping base hits all over the field and you're just like, okay, your guys are better than our guys. But when you give them 13 free opportunities to get on the bases, you're just asking for trouble.
And that's the frustrating thing. And like you said, you can hear it in his voice. He's not as jovial and joking as he was, say, after the Clemson series. It's one thing if against, again, they're 1-9 against ranked teams now. If those 9 losses were all by like 7 or 8 runs or run rules or stuff like that, you say, okay, we just don't have the talent to compete with these guys. But the fact that, again, last night, 8th inning, tie ball game. The other day, 8th inning, tie ball game. Mm-hmm. Multiple times when you get in the last couple of innings, you're right there either tied with the lead or down by a run or two, and you let them get away from you time and time again. That's what probably drives him crazy. He wants to bang his head against the wall like you have the ability to be there, but you can't get over the finish line.
All right, here's Coach Mainieri talking about the pitching, which obviously let them down big time last night, cut 27.
No. The plan was what it was. The only deviation we made was to bring Susie out once we knew there were going to be 4 left-handed hitters in a row the next inning. And I'm trying to remember, is that the inning he gave up the home run, or he gave up the home run in the first inning?
He gave up 2. So
he gave up 2. It's so long ago I can't even remember. But that was the only deviation away from the plan, was just knowing that there were 4 left-handed hitters in a row, and we thought Susie gave us a good chance there. But but as far as using other guys, no, the plan was 1 inning each, and hand it to the next guy. But some guys did a good job. I thought Sweeney really threw the ball well tonight. He looked like his old self. I was proud of Caleb Jones. He's been waiting his turn. He came in and gave us a shutout inning. Palmer gave us a shutout inning in the 9th. It was a little too late though, but we just got to keep working hard. But 11 walks, 2 hit batters. I mean, you're just not going to beat teams when you do that. It's hard enough, when you give up hits and some home runs, but when you give 13 free passes, it's just too much to overcome.
I mean, Sweeney threw zeros, Crowther threw zeros, Jones.
Crowther gave up 1 hit.
Zeros, like no runs.
No runs, yeah.
Jones gave up no runs.
Yep.
Kimball didn't give up any runs, which was good. He threw 2/3, and Palmer finished it up with an inning scoreless. But Susie with 3 runs, Garino with a couple of runs, Russell struggled, giving up 3 earned. Marlotte gave up 2 earned and only could get 1 out. Just a tough go, man. Just a tough go last night. And if you look at it, all right, so we talk about the 13 free passes when you look at walks and hit batters.
Yep.
Oh, by the way, then put 12 hits in there, too.
25 base runners.
25.
Half of them came across the plate.
Base runners. Wow. That's just a tough day at the office, man.
Yeah. And again, it's not a new thing.
Mm-mm.
Which, again, the last time I checked, the schedule's not going to get easier.
No, it's not, Tyler.
And look, you do play some teams like A&M that are struggling a little bit, but
you go to
you're
College
going
Station,
to College
right?
Station,
Mm-hmm.
so that makes it that much tougher.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it isn't easy, but it's the SEC, and everybody's playing a hard schedule. You get the 3 at home against Tennessee. You get Presbyterian, Mississippi State. That's on the road in Starkville. Upstate midweek, like you said, at A&M. Let's see, you get the Citadel midweek. You're going to have Ole Miss here. At Kentucky, Florida here. You're right. I mean, it just, Auburn is here. So's LSU. It doesn't get any easier, man.
By the way, that's a lot better Auburn team than a year ago.
Yes.
You haven't checked the standings lately.
Take a look. And A&M scuffling, but again, that one's on the road. And Kentucky, that's on the road. All right, just in case you just woke up, we'll get you caught up what's happening in the world of sports. A lot of college basketball to get to. It's been crazy time here with the coaching carousel and the transfer portal carousel. It's all coming up next here on the Halftime Show with Terry Ford and Tyler Head on the Game. Oh, man. A lot of stuff going on if you just woke up in the world of college basketball. Also, we're going to get to we're going to hear some from some position coaches today. Mike Furry, Marquise Blackwell. Blackwell, in case you didn't know, he's the running backs coach you hardly ever hear from.
Yeah, I didn't even remember the thing about him maybe looking elsewhere last spring, which is why we didn't hear from him. Like, oh, that's
Remember
right.
that? Yeah.
Because, he's kind of been in the shadows a little bit.
Mike Furry talking to the media, the wide receiver coach. We'll get to some of that coming up here in just a little bit. A lot of coaching carousel stuff going on in college basketball. Richard Pitino, not Rick. Richard Pitino will be leaving New Mexico to take the Xavier gig because Sean Miller left the Xavier gig to take the Texas gig.
Yes.
I think Texas hired. Look, Sean Miller's a really good coach. Say what you want about whatever was going on with the wiretapping and the rule breaking that went on in Arizona, but Miller can coach. He's been to multiple Elite Eights, whether at Xavier or at Arizona, and he will get Texas back to winning big. He will. He's just a really good basketball coach. I don't know what to say about Richard Pitino. I'll just be honest, he wasn't very good at Minnesota. He just wasn't. And then he went to New Mexico and kind of revived his career. He's done a hell of a job with the Lobos.
Yep.
Donovan Dent was one of the best players in America you never heard of that played for New Mexico. So I don't know if it was New Mexico or was it Richard Pitino. We're going to find out.
Could be both.
Yeah. Look, that was a power conference gig for a young coach that I don't know was ready for it. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, because he only had 1 year at FIU before he went to Minnesota.
Exactly. But
so what have you learned since then? How did that help mold you and the coach you are now? Who knows?
He did 8 years at Minnesota. The first year they won the NIT. Woohoo! Yippee! Woohoo! Hang a banner. And then after that, the 7 years after that, only 2 NCAA tournament trips. So you probably got a guy that wasn't ready for that gig, but you're not going to turn it down.
No, of course
not. If you're
not.
Richard Pitino and they're offering you, triple the money you're getting at FIU?
And let's be honest. The name carries a lot of weight.
And that's what I think happened. I think Minnesota fell in love with the name.
Yeah. And again, has he revived himself to be able to take on a role like that at Xavier? We'll see. Is Rick Pitino willing to curse out his own son coaching across from him?
I know.
I think he is.
That's going to be fun. Xavier and St. John's hook up. The Pitino family.
Is he going to be more hard on him because you don't want to feel like that he's going like, hey, I can't treat you differently than any other coach. People are going to think I'm going soft.
I'm going to go at you harder.
I'm going to go at you harder.
Oh yeah. I remember I had friends that would play for their dads because their dad was like, I got to be worse to you than everybody on the team.
Coach's son was always the one that got coached the hardest.
Oh, because the good coaches, right?
If your head coach coddled his son, you're on a bad team.
Exactly. I lived through that when I was a kid. It was miserable. Coach did it, and the kid was felt entitled. It was bad.
Oh, yeah.
It was bad.
Yeah, we've all been there.
It was bad. So, look, again, I don't know if just Richard Pitino wasn't ready for that job. I just don't know.
Yeah.
But we shall see now, because Xavier's they love hoops, and they take it seriously.
Yeah, you're going to be under more of a microscope. Again, New Mexico State, that's great.
Yeah.
If you don't win, okay. No, I guarantee you, a lot of people in New Mexico don't know who the head coach is of their basketball team.
Everybody at Xavier does.
Every Xavier does because they don't got football. This is their thing.
This is their thing. So we'll see. And again, if you're Richard Pitino, no, don't offer me all that money to come to Minnesota. I'm going to stay here at Florida International, and I'm going to my office is in my closet. Of course you take it, but I just feel like maybe he wasn't ready. We'll find out going to Xavier. Also, a couple interesting pops. Well, first of all, another one too. The kid, Iowa. I thought this was a really good hire.
Mm-hmm.
I like the hire of McCollum, Ben McCollum. For years, he was coaching lower levels in college basketball, being very successful. Went to Drake, had a heck of a year. Brought a bunch of D2 dudes with him from Northwest Missouri State. They upset Missouri in the NCAA tournament. The best player on the team, Bennett Sturtz, the point guard, is going to follow McCollum to Iowa. No shock there. That's happening. I tell you what was interesting was seeing who went to into the transfer portal from North Carolina. Their point guard, Elliot Cadu. I believe he's going to go into his junior year. He started 68 games over the last 2 years. He's in the portal. That's interesting. He was a big-time 5-star kid coming out of high school. So, and he's been a solid player. No one's going to say he hasn't been, productive
Right.
at North Carolina. If you look at, I'm saying there's numbers in front of me now, the biggest issue is the three-point shooting has been 6 assists, 6 to 3 assist to turnover ratio, below average free throw shooter. He's been okay. People thought he'd be better than he's been, but he hasn't been terrible. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
He's been all right. And maybe after 2 years, and look, the NIL deal at North Carolina is a little screwy. They're trying to get more money because right now everybody's in love with the new football coach.
Well, and he wouldn't have come there if you weren't willing to
Right.
commit everything to football.
Right. And let's be honest here, though, and this is not to be, look, North Carolina's a basketball school, man. They just are. You can go hire Bill Belichick and he can walk around with his rings dangling off his neck, but it's a basketball school.
Yep.
And you got to make sure you got enough cash in today's world to fund your basketball program. I don't know if Cadeau left because of those issues. I don't know, but that is interesting. All right, let's see, has it been done yet? All right, Phil Martelli Jr., who did a really nice job at Bryant. Sources say the VCU is targeting him to be their new head coach. VCU, by the way, is a hell of a job.
Yeah.
They've got NIL money.
And they have a history of success.
They care deeply about basketball at VCU.
I thought they were going to go deep this year.
Yeah, so did I. How'd that go?
Yeah.
That's a really good gig. And Phil Martelli Jr. was a great story, him and Dad at Bryant and everything. Phil Martelli Jr. Is targeted there. The biggest job opens Villanova. And Villanova has not hired anybody because the word is they're waiting for the tournament or waiting for a coach in the tournament to exit the tournament.
Well, with the NC State, you can just hire the coach while he's still in the tournament, so he knows as soon as he's done where he's going.
Now, probably as soon as, and the word is it's going to be Kevin Willard at Maryland, maybe.
Yeah.
But would you see Maryland loses to Florida, and you look over and Willard's got a Villanova jersey on, a Villanova shirt or sweater?
Yeah, he's already got his bags packed.
Yep. I tell you, Willard, really quick, I give Willard a lot of credit. I'm not a huge fan of Willard, being a Maryland men's basketball fan. But he played his cards, man. He got up as a presser at the start of the NCAA tournament and basically dog-walked Maryland's administration in front of the whole world.
Nice.
He said, we need more NIL money. We're one of the worst NIL-funded programs in the Big Ten. We wanted to stay an extra day in New York. We played at Madison Square Garden, and the administration said we couldn't afford it. I mean, he just scorched earth, right?
Which that also sets you up to look that much better when you're making a deep tournament run.
Well, and plus, two, that shows you he knows he's got an offer in hand.
Yeah.
And he's basically saying to Maryland, what are you going to do to keep me?
Hey, I've laid out my terms.
I want more NIL money.
Yep.
And I want to be able to stay in New York City an extra day with my basketball team.
And don't put us up at the the motel down the street.
Motel 6. The motel. What does bring your own sheets mean, Coach?
I say Villanova says we can stay at the Radisson.
Right.
Can you match that?
Yeah, well, we're going to do the Comfort Inn. But, I mean, I give Willard props. He laid it out there because he knows he's got skins in the game. When you got skins in the game, that tells me he wants to stay at Maryland.
Sure.
But they've got to pony it up or he'll take the Villanova job. So that's kind of where it's at. Richard Pitino has talked about at Villanova as well, and a couple others. We'll see where that goes.
They got basketball. That's their thing.
It is their thing. They're a basketball school. All right, real quick, the NCAA tournament. It is the most watched NCAA tournament since 1993.
But there's no Cinderellas. Nobody cares.
And the NIL's ruined everything.
It has.
Yeah,
That's
Tyler.
what Stephen A. Smith said.
It's ruined everything. It's terrible. Nobody cares. Well, no, Stephen A. Smith said it was dead.
It was dead. That's right. It's dead.
Yeah, I want to say to Stephen A. Smith, can you name me 5 players in the NCAA tournament? Yeah, sure. Dak Prescott.
How many games did he watch before last week?
None.
Exactly.
You and I were joking yesterday. His big riff. How does the NCAA tournament ratings affect the Dallas Cowboys?
Affect LeBron's legacy.
Exactly. By the way, the women's numbers have gone down. No Caitlin Clark. Not a surprise.
I get it.
Not a surprise. They're still better than they were a couple years ago.
It's solid, but again, you're at the height of heights last year.
Yeah, and again, no surprise. You take away the star power of Caitlin Clark and the numbers come down. But the men's tournament is doing phenomenal in the ratings. All right. Firehouse Subtext the hour next, 803-404-6100 here on the Halftime Show on the Game. Halftime show, Tyler Head, Terry Ford, as we roll up until 3 on the game. Dave, since Dave worked it this morning, we figured we'd let him go home.
Yeah, he got up at 4:30. It's not fun.
No,
Got to do it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Gave him the day off.
Yeah.
The rest of the day off.
I did that for like 10 years.
Yeah.
I was half asleep for 10 years, man.
Well, that's why you drink so much coffee now.
Yes.
I
Yes.
don't think you've still recovered.
Still trying to get my energy back. 10 years. Whew. Oh, man. All right. Real quick, Firehouse subtext, the area 344-6100. What do you got?
Nameless texter, I'm not sure it would matter who the baseball coaches are this year after watching the game so far this season. I just don't think they have horses to run the race. I know the kids are playing hard and doing the best they can, but it seems like the rest of the league has more talent than we do, and the only way to fix it is through recruiting.
Yeah. And, you know, it's almost like the same thing we said about the men's basketball team. Almost the same exact thing.
Yeah.
But here's the next question. Why? Why don't you?
It's a good point. Especially, and look, in years past, you were kind of saddled to your roster to a degree for a couple years because, okay, you had to filter out all the guys that your previous coach had recruited and all that kind of stuff. And now it's open season. Again, the transfer portal, guys can come in, guys can go out. And you went out there, you acquired talent. You got Kazmar and you got, Carrion's been here for a little while, but you've got guys like that. You got a ton of pitchers out of the transfer portal, guys that you were excited to see how they fit into South Carolina. Nathan Hall at the top of the order, who's obviously done a good job. And, you know, you have shaped this roster in the way that Maneri wanted it to in a lot of ways. But, again, right now it's showing it's not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. It's like, you know, why aren't you better? Why don't you have the horses? Why does everybody else seem to have more talent? Did you once again misevaluate? Did you not have the funds that you needed to go out and get the players that you wanted to get? I mean, hell, Arkansas tore up the transfer portal
Sure.
to get batters.
They were already good. And they look better.
They could pitch, they couldn't hit. Now, guess what?
They can do both.
They can do both.
Going to be hard-pressed to stop them now.
Right. I mean, they went out and spent money. You know, they got those two brothers in the last two trips through the transfer portal. They added some other players as well, and now all of a sudden, 1 through 6 in the Arkansas lineup can destroy you.
That's right.
That's transfer portal.
Yep.
What did or didn't happen? Again, did you just misevaluate what you had? Did you know this was... Look, South Carolina was picked preseason 14th, so it's not like, wow, nobody saw this coming. But it's just the idea that you thought, well, okay, there's some pieces left over from going to the postseason. You've got a manager that knows his way around the postseason. This team should be better than 14th. Well, right now, they're not. They're worse.
Yeah.
They're worse than 14th.
Yeah, and again, a lot of baseball left to play.
Yes.
You're only 2 SEC series in. Again, doesn't get easier. Number 1 team coming up. Tough games on the road the next couple weeks. Like, you just got to, at some point, you have to let things start clicking. And again, it would be in your best interest to really win the series this weekend, but avoid getting swept, which right now, that looks like a tall task.
I mean, you know, it was in your best interest to win last night. You didn't. Now it's in your best interest to win 2 out of 3 at home versus Tennessee. And like you said, after what we've seen here lately, it's tough.
Yep.
All right, our poll question on Twitter X at 1075 The Game. Poll question of the day. What's your level of hope for the Gamecocks baseball team? Long season, still time, concerned, mashing the panic button, checked out. Guess which one leads the way right now?
Still time but concerned?
Checked out, 39%.
Ooh, man, that was quick.
That was quick, wasn't it? We'll talk more about that before 3 o'clock. Lots of football next in the 1 o'clock hour. Like always, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Our buddy Dimitri Ravenos will yap some football with us. That's coming up here on The Game. Halftime show, 1 o'clock. It's football, nothing but football. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. Coming up 1:15, our buddy Dimitri Ravenos will jump in, talk some football with us. That's coming up. Also, we'll hear from Mike Furrey, Torian Gray, Marquise Blackwell. Markel. I keep saying Marquise for some reason. There's a Marquise Blackwell that played somewhere either in the NBA or the NFL.
See what Google says.
Find a Marquise Blackwell. There's one somewhere. Because it's just, I automatically go to Marquise, and I don't know why. I think there's somebody who played with that name years ago. I could be wrong. I could just be losing my mind, which is quite possible. There's a Mr. Blackwell who is a great fashion icon.
Sure. Let's see. I have let's see. I don't think it's quite the results you were expecting. Marquise Blackwell played for Northeastern High School and has a Max Preps page.
That's the guy. That's my guy.
Senior year 2010. 5'11", 195, tight end and linebacker. I don't think he played in college.
You don't think so at 5'11"?
He is from your neck of the woods, though, in Hyattsville, Maryland.
Hyattsville?
Maryland.
You see, I know him. That's my guy.
Yeah.
That's why I keep saying Marquise Blackwell.
I don't see any career past college, high school. So.
Well, the 30 for 30 is coming out.
Yeah, a 5'11", sub 200 tight end and linebacker. He's not gonna get too far.
Playing linebacker at 195.
Well, in his career, he had one fumble recovery and one tackle.
There you go.
So
that's who I was talking about. I knew it was there somewhere.
Wherever you are now, Marquise Blackwell, you're doing well.
We are giving you your love and props here, sir. All right, so let's start with Mike Furrey, Tyler. Talking to the media. Obviously, a lot of freshman wide receivers on this football team that have some serious rep coming out of high school. Here's Coach Furrey talking about those freshman wideouts.
Well, I think we recruited every single one of them because of their talent, right? And so, the first thing that always goes is things slow down. They slow down, a lot of thinking going on. And then their skill set and their talent kind of doesn't show right away. And a lot of that's just really becoming comfortable, right? And so we've challenged these guys a lot over the last 6 weeks since we really kind of been doing all this stuff of trying to get these guys to understand what their assignments are, understand how to get lined up, or understand how to line up, and then execute and perform the details that we're asking them to do in regards to the routes that we're asking them to run. So, when you look at it collectively, all of them have taken a deep breath over the last 6 weeks. They've all gotten in. They've been, Coach Day does a phenomenal job in our weight program to get guys acclimated because it's rigorous, it's demanding, and it's structured, and it's kind of like playing the game. And so they've all responded very well to that, and that's helped them be ready for spring ball. And what these guys have shown over the first 3 days, I've been very impressed.
Well, there you go. I mean, again, it's a learning thing. I mean, you're learning the basic stuff.
Yep.
How to line up. You figure that should be easy. Well, maybe not. Maybe you're lining up different.
And I think you also learn, because again, if you're playing in college, you were probably the best guy on the field or one of the best guys on the field. In high school. That's why you were recruited to come to a place like South Carolina. And you may realize maybe some of your fine-tuning, some of your mechanics aren't exactly as pristine as you thought, because now, the margin for error is a whole lot thinner.
Yeah, and you realize that the stuff you did in high school, a lot of it ain't going to fly.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. And you say the lining up.
You're not going against 5'11", 195 linebackers.
Hey,
or
you leave Marquise Blackwell
DBs
alone,
or anything
man.
like that.
You don't disrespect Marquise Blackwell's game. Anyway, so even the lining up thing is a thing, and it's different. But all these guys have some serious talent. Now it just comes down to the development of that talent. And I know we don't like to talk about that anymore because it's boring in a transfer portal era we live in, but you're still developing talent.
Look, it can be hard. Because, and again, we're talking about true freshmen coming in, but you have guys that do hop from school to school to school, over the course of 3-4 years of their career, and they're not getting consistent development because they're going to go to another wide receiver coach that's going to tell them something completely different than the last one told them, and it's like starting over again. So you have these guys you can kind of mold, hopefully to stick around your program for the next 3 or 4 years, to be what you want them to be as wide receivers. And again, these guys come in with a lot of talent. They're very hyped up, rightfully so, and if they're good enough, they're going to find their way onto the field this fall.
And they could. I mean, look, Mazio Bennett got on the field last year and was productive for the most part. You'd love to see 1 or 2 of them go that route. And we've seen freshman wide receivers. I mean, look, no one's saying that you're going to get like Smith or Williams from Ohio State and Alabama. But if you can get a couple of these guys to come in and make some plays for you through the year, that's nothing but a good thing.
Sure.
So we'll see where it goes. But obviously a lot of people an eyeball on these young wide receivers. Nick Harbor also playing football, not running track at spring practice. Here's Coach Furry. Let's get cut 4 talking about Nick Harbor learning the position of wide receiver.
I think the biggest thing is maturity, right? And I without getting too much into it, and Nick can speak a lot about it on his own when he talks to you guys. But I think when you look at a Nick Harbor, I think everybody's expectations for Nick exceeded what his expectations were because he was so inexperienced at playing the position. And but when you look at his body size, you would just assume that he would be able to go out there and just dominate every game and every situation. Well, there's a lot that goes on to play wide out. I mean, it's not just running. I mean, you got to run as fast as you can. You got to get in and out of transitions. You got to be able to snap your head around. You got to be able to catch the ball when it's in flight, and you better be able to catch that ball while you're running 100 miles an hour after at that ball. There's a lot that goes on, and he just hasn't. He hadn't at that time really experienced a lot of that stuff, right? It was all just speculation. And I think now the biggest thing for Nick that we're all excited about, including himself, is he's caught balls in games. He's went and got footballs. We've relied on him on some past stuff last year. And I think towards the end of the season, the touchdown against the Missouri, I think it was, or the ball he caught over the shoulder against Missouri, and then the touchdown coming back against Akron or whatnot, and kind of starting to get in the flow of things. That builds confidence. Right, and I think the more and more he becomes confident with himself, the more we'll start exceeding our expectations of what we think of Nick Harbor. And I think the other thing, too, for Nick, I think the best thing about Nick is, I told Nick this the other day, the best thing that ever could happen to Nick is these six freshmen that are coming in. Because they don't, they're going to come in here and just do everything they can and do it right and do it as fast as they can. And he's going to be able to learn from them a little bit, too, of how you're supposed to do stuff and see it the right way. And then be able to go out and emulate that also and add that to his game. And so it's kind of hand in hand with him coming back with experience and then the new guys coming in that are going to be able to push him. And he's had 3 really good days here at spring.
I love Furry. I love Furry. Love hearing him. He sounds like, he sounds like a dude.
His voice is hoarse because he's been yelling so much
and
practice.
Screaming. And he's so intense. And that's just
and
his
he's
voice.
bald, and that takes your intensity to another level.
Absolutely, new level.
Yeah.
But the thing about that whole riff that kind of makes me smile. Do you think Nick Harbor's really happy there's 6 guys coming in and take his job?
I think happy's probably not the right word to use there. I think it's beneficial because, again, you're dealing with guys coming in that have played the wide receiver position for a long time that can, push you a little bit. Because that's the thing. He's saying competition is going to help him.
Yeah, that's what he's trying to say.
He's got guys going to come in and light a fire under his butt. Now that he's a full participant in spring practice, saying, hey, here's what you need to be doing because these guys are doing it. They're younger than you. If you're not careful, they're going to take your spot.
Hey, Tyler, we got 6 guys coming in next week who are going to be hosting and producing.
I'm so excited. I can't wait. Thrilled.
No, you got to do the J.J. McCarthy. I don't want anything given to me.
I'm really glad you've not named me the full-time host yet. I think it's going to be good to have these guys around.
I want to earn it.
I want to earn it.
I don't want you to give me anything.
Okay,
Was that
JJ.
the biggest load of manure you've ever heard in your entire life?
Between that and the curing depression by just saying, I'm going to stop being depressed. Remember that, the national championship?
A lot of people who live with deep depression have done the same thing. They just look in the mirror and go, okay,
I'm going to stop.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Enough of this nonsense.
JJ figured it out.
Well, it's good for, but they're wearing bracelets. What would JJ do?
Yeah.
WW.
That's what that stands for.
What would JJ do? WWJD? JJD. But yeah, that was so funny today. I don't want anything given to me. I'm glad they didn't name me the starter.
So if Kevin McConnell walks in and says, JJ, want to name you starter? No.
No.
No. Nope.
Not at all.
It is March 26th. I will not accept it. I want it. If I'm going to be the starter, it better be the day of the first game.
I want to earn it.
I want to earn it. I don't feel like I've earned it yet. Okay, well, you want to go draft another quarterback then?
Nick Harbor. Only 6 guys? That's it?
That's it.
Bring more.
Yeah, he's happy that they're there is definitely an interesting way to phrase that.
I just thought it was so good. Look, Furry's done a heck of a job on the recruiting trail. This guy just ridiculous, the talent he's brought in.
Again, just from an X's and O's standpoint, we know he's got it down, former head coach himself. If I'm a 17-year-old kid and my goal is to go to the NFL, and you send a coach that has played in the NFL, led the league in receptions at one point in time, alongside Calvin frickin' Johnson, that's gonna resonate a lot with me.
Yeah, and the thing about with Furry, not only the recruiting, is the development of how much better Nick Harbor got through the year, right? Mazeo Bennett being able to give them production as a freshman. Look, I'm not taking anything away from the players. Obviously, these guys have got to put the grind in and the work and the effort and the reps. But it felt like we saw improvement in the wide receiver position with those guys last year. So you got development, you got recruiting. Like you said, a guy that's been a head coach before. Obviously, he's got the cool Coach Horse voice.
Yep.
He's rolling.
Yeah. Again, he checks all the boxes for what, if I'm, again, 17-year-old kid deciding where I want to go to college, I'll play for that guy.
Who's got a better horse voice, Furry or Buzz Williams, head coach of Texas A&M basketball?
Ooh. Man, that's a tough one.
Mm-hmm. That is.
I'd have to hear them side by side, to be honest with
We
you.
might have to do that at some point.
They're both pretty horse. Can we get Furry like a Halls sponsorship deal?
Oh, for that.
Or
that would be
Ricola or
good.
something like that?
That would be good. That's a natural. All right, Torian Gray, secondary coach at South Carolina, talking about, obviously replacing the most important piece in the secondary, and that would be Nicky Manwari. Here's Gray talking about who's going to step up for Nick.
Nick's such a unique talent. I don't know if you replace a guy like Nick. I've had a Cam Chancellor. You have Nicky Manwari. Those guys are, they're different body types playing the defensive back position. But you play as a group around them, and I'm excited about the group that we do have. So, looking forward to the guys stepping up the challenge and guys playing in new roles and seeing if we can be better than last year. That's the goal.
And what are you going to do about that spot? So far, we've heard, okay, could you move DQ Smith into that safety spot from his? Are you going to take Jalen Kilgore from nickel and put him at safety? How are you going to handle replacing Nicky Manwari? You've got, obviously, 2 corners you've gotten through the portal that you like, and you got some youngins on the team, too, as well. So we will see where this goes. But, even Wari will not be easy to replace, as well as Nick played last year. And it's interesting, once they put Nick in the right position to succeed, Nick really succeeded.
Yeah.
And last year, 2 years ago, trying to have him cover slot receivers was not his wheelhouse. What you saw from Nick last year was the way you use Nicky Manwari. And Nick there's a good chance will end up in the second half of the first round of the NFL draft. All right, so we are talking Notable Football in the 1 o'clock hour. Next up, we'll yap with our buddy Dimitri Ravenos. We will talk Mike Gundy. Mouth opens, gold comes out. We'll get to that. And Stanford got rid of their football coach. Saying, did the AD fire him, Tara? They don't have an AD. They got a GM. And his name is, well, you might have heard of him. We'll get to that next. We're going to yap with Dimitri. Nothing but football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on The Game. All right, we yap a lot of football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. I'm going to drag our bud, Dimitri Ravenos, in here so he can yap with us. Hey, bud, how you doing, man?
Good, buddy. How are you? Long time no.
I know. Every time I go to talk to you, you're climbing Mount Everest or you're at your own private family island or something.
I was just telling Tyler, my wife and I were in Puerto Rico a couple of weeks ago. Puerto Rico, on the beach, no seagulls, actual pigeons, like just the kind you would see walking around the middle of a city.
Really?
Yeah, you like in that moment, you understand why it is everyone on that beach is visiting from New York, and you understand why so many Puerto Ricans move to New York. Like it just must feel like home.
All right. Mike Gundy just gives us gold, whether he wants to or not.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys. I really believe that he thinks everything he says is deep and insightful.
Agreed.
I really believe.
I think that nobody thinks what Mike Gundy has to say is more important than what Mike Gundy does.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in case you haven't heard it as a listener, here's what Mike Gundy said about a spring game. Mike Gundy had a genius idea, and you hear it in Mike Gundy's voice as he's talking about this. He's just growing this genius idea in his head about a spring game for Oklahoma State.
Honestly, that's something that we've talked about. I think it's a great idea. I had kind of forgot about it until it got brought up. Somebody had texted me an article or something about that, and when you read it, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, honestly, for us, we should do a home and home with OU in the spring. They have I think ours is on, I don't know what the date is, but it's a Saturday prior to the last week, something like that. Okay, so they should come here on the 19th, and I think theirs is earlier in the year. We should go down there and play a home and home in the spring against them. Charge $25 a head. They can use it for NIL. We'll use it for NIL. If they don't want to do two in one spring, we can do one here this year, do it there next year, and split the gate. Because we get tired of practicing against each other. It's not going to be a live game because, well, I don't know what Coach Venables would say, but I would be concerned with making it live just because of injury. But nobody really has live scrimmages anymore, so you make it a full thud like we're doing and practice against them just like they do in the NFL.
It just keeps going and going and going.
I mean, am I crazy to say I don't hate it? I really don't like two spring games in 1 year, though. That seems stupid.
Yeah, I think I like it to a point, but here's what I'll throw out to you guys. These two schools, last time I checked, hate each other.
Right?
Correct.
Do you think they can go out there and just kind of run around like most teams do in the spring game? Don't you think someone's going to try to knock the hell out of somebody and then all sorts of craziness is going to ensue? And Venables, I could see Gundy going, we're not blitzing, right, Brett? No blitzing, Mike, I swear to God. Third play from scrimmage, he's blitzing 9 dudes. I pictured this thing could end up in jail.
Well, that's the fun thing is if you pay the $25, you can go see a fight break out.
Exactly.
So I would agree with you if this were 1995 and not 2025. Like, none of those kids on Oklahoma's roster are from Oklahoma. Very few of them are from Texas. Like, I think college football has become such a national endeavor that I worry about that a little less. I'll tell you what jumps out to me is like kind of crazy about this. And in South Carolina, this stands out really well. How is it that the Gamecocks could leave the ACC so many years ago and Clemson has no problem still playing them? Like, how did every Big 12 school that moved to the SEC not get the message that you can still have out-of-conference games with your old rivals? Why does Oklahoma act like this is friggin' impossible?
Yeah, these two together with this whole thing makes me laugh because you're right. It should be done. This should not be impossible.
Right. Like A&M stopped playing Texas for a long time. Kansas stopped playing Missouri for a long time. I think Kansas and Missouri actually are playing again. But it's one of these things. I totally get if you are Oklahoma State, how you feel hurt and betrayed. And obviously now your TV deal is worth a whole lot less than it was beforehand. But are fans really do they really feel good about sticking it to Oklahoma by not playing Bedlam anymore?
No, not at all.
No.
If you went and you did some kind of a survey with fans, they definitely want to play Oklahoma. This is about, you're Oklahoma State. You're the ugly redheaded stepchild.
Right.
Your good-looking sister just moved off and married a rich guy, and you got stuck there in the trailer.
See, this is the thing that, if I'm an Oklahoma State fan and we do this in the spring, I am less worried about your scenario of a fight breaking out than I am am I really going to get $25 worth of entertainment out of this? Is anybody going to play that I care about in this game?
Well, and he kind of referenced it there that it probably wouldn't look like a normal game. I think you'd have maybe situations that you're doing, but there's no way you're going to have two Power 5, Power 4 teams go out there and actually try and outscore each other.
But here's my thing. Then don't do it. I mean, to me, this mess of, we're going to go out there and do situations, or we're going to do jumping jacks together, or that stuff to me is just asinine.
I do like the idea of joint calisthenics.
I do think there's something too, and this is obviously what Colorado and Syracuse are trying to do, of having, hey, School X is going to come in for 3 or 4 days. We're going to have, a mini camp essentially like you do in the NFL and get good reps based off that, maybe have some small scrimmages and stuff like that. I think that's kind of where this stuff is probably going.
I say this, and I'm all for the NFL model of you do the controlled scrimmages, you're doing the situations you want to put your team in, but those things always end up in brawls.
They do.
Hell yeah, they do.
Yeah.
I mean, guys are taking their helmets off, swinging them at each other. It's insane. But I would love to see college football give the coaches and the programs the option if they want to play, some D2 school or whatever in an exhibition type game, getting you ready for the season, whether it's the new version of a spring game or whatever. I'd be all for it. I would be. I think it would be something that would help your football team.
Yeah, I think the state of South Carolina has a really good model, right? Clemson and Carolina are both required to play the lower tier in-state schools, whether that's G5 or FCS level schools. I mean, this is the kind of thing that can make up for a lack of funding. Like South Carolina State, I know they relish when they come up on the Carolina or Clemson schedule because that is just a different level of payday for them versus going to play, just as an example, like a Virginia or something like that, right? Because there is a different level of excitement to that kind of game. You say that's when Alabama's going to play Alabama A&M, or that's when Florida State, Florida A&M, or LSU Southern is the better example because they share a city. Southern and LSU share a campus. Are you telling me that a spring event would not generate a ton of money for both schools?
Yeah, and Southern would love that check. I mean, it'd be perfect.
Right. I agree. I mean, I think that there are ways. Look, I hate this argument that spring football is now a detriment because people can scout players from you that they would like to lure into the portal in a way. I mean, okay, so what are you going to do about the regular season? Are you just going to demand your games not be on TV or are you going to demand nobody show up? I think that's such a dumb argument, but if we're headed that way, let's figure out a model that not only gives your guys the practice they need, but does not cheat the fans that cannot afford to pay the amount of money that it costs to get into. I mean, even the Willie B is expensive to get into on a Saturday. Do you know how much it costs to get in Tuscaloosa or in Athens? Give me a break.
Yeah. But you reference the fans. That's something that nobody really cares about.
Oh, that's the problem, Dimitri, is the people that actually pay the freight for these guys to make all their money get screwed again.
Oh, listen, the NCAA basically said it. Up here in the Raleigh area where I live, in the women's tournament, we had North Carolina, and NC State all hosting first-round games. And they scheduled North Carolina's games and NC State's games at the exact same time. They scheduled the Duke women and the Duke men at the exact same time, and the Duke men were playing here in Raleigh while the Duke women were playing at home. And the NCAA basically said when there was some uproar about, well, gosh, it would be nice to be able to get to all of these games for those of us that love women's basketball, the NCAA basically said point blank, yeah, that's not what we're doing here. We want you watching on TV. That's where the money is now.
Yep, absolutely. Hey, you got anything to do for the next 10 minutes? We'll pull you over to the next segment. We'll talk about the new model of college football at Stanford.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, good. Dimitri Ravenos for Yapping Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Tyler Head, Terry Ford here on the game. What we're talking about is football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Dimitri Ravenos is hanging out with us. How's the podcast going? You still sitting in the tub talking football?
Yeah, I have to make time to record later on today as we talk about. I think this week's episode is going to be about sort of the dicey proposition of how Tennessee gets to that next level everybody thinks they are capable of doing.
You know, a lot of people, when it comes to bathtubs, they charge for premium content. You doing that yet?
No, I am not starting.
Is this OnlyFans? Are you going OnlyFans?
I'm more of a fanfics kind of gal myself, or a Fansly. It's probably not good that I know the name of all the knockoff sites.
Yeah.
We won't ask any more questions.
Yeah. You read about them. You just read about them. Yeah.
I mean, look, the listeners can infer what my Instagram feed looks like. Who am I to say?
Read, research, subscribe. We don't judge.
Right.
All right. So Stanford gets rid of their head coach, Troy Taylor. And look, the story here isn't a dude with 6 wins over 2 years gets fired. That's not the story. Or how Stanford football is cratered. That's not the story. The story is Taylor, he got fired because just some inappropriate treatment of female employees, even the compliance officer. This is the one thing that gets me, Dimitri. He even was inappropriate with the female compliance officer who was there to investigate his inappropriate behavior.
Right, and by all accounts, basically was walking around the football building telling the NCAA compliance people, the people that make sure that Stanford is not breaking the rules, to quit doing their jobs. to leave me alone and quit doing your job.
So Taylor, but the real story here, Taylor gets let go, not by the AD, because Stanford doesn't have an AD right now, by their general manager, who you might have heard of before, Andrew Luck.
Yeah. I don't think this is the start of a trend. I think this is a bespoke one-of-one situation. I would not be surprised, guys, if Andrew Luck was hired specifically to have someone to fire Troy Taylor. Like, that team was not going anywhere anytime soon. The accusations against him are enough that at a place like Stanford, you would have thought that the end of the line would have come very quickly for a guy averaging 3 wins a season. I don't think we're seeing the start of a trend here.
I get where you're going, because this is a weird situation where there's no athletic director.
Right.
And you have a head coach, like you said, for some reason hasn't looked at his one-loss record.
Yeah.
Because, dude, if I'm averaging 3 wins a year, I'm treating no one in an inappropriate manner.
Well, this is a classic example of, I don't think the dude knew what job he was taking, right? He came from Sacramento State at the FCS level, which is, it's like going to USC upstate, right? Like it's a branch campus of a bigger university. And call me crazy, this is nothing against the Fighting Hornets of Sacramento State. I would bet the academic expectations are a little bit different at Stanford compared to that place.
You think? You're going out on a limb on that one. I can tell.
Yeah, well, listen, I like to take chances.
Hey, Sacramento State is the Yale of California. Look at you go.
All right.
No, you're right. I mean, look, and this sometimes comes back to, again, and we always forget this, right? What was in someone's head when they hired this guy?
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, call me insane. Stanford's a little bit different than pretty much most jobs, right?
Yeah, I mean, Stanford has trouble fielding a support staff. They have trouble filling out their assistant ranks because it's so hard to pay somebody enough to live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I believe Stanford and Cal both, if either of you know for sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they both have dorms basically for coaching staffs because they can't afford to buy in that area.
Yeah, they used to, and you're right. Now I haven't checked lately, but I've read that before. You're correct, because they can't afford to. You got people making like $150,000 a year living under a bridge in the Silicon Valley. It's crazy.
Right.
So to me, if you're going to be interviewing a guy for that job, you need a certain specific individual to be successful. You can be successful there. We've seen it. But you got to get the right guy, and you got to get someone in there especially who you got to vet someone enough to make sure that they don't have any nonsense that's going to be unacceptable to that university. This hire was weird anyway. You're taking a guy from Sacramento State and jumping him all the way up to Stanford. Sometimes people make bad hires, Dimitri.
Yeah, I mean, look, it also spoke to where Stanford was, right? Like the Pac-12 was crumbling beneath their feet. Nobody knew exactly what Stanford was going to do when the Pac-12 went away. So I understand that it was a little bit tougher of a sell, but I think that's one of those places where you don't just need, or maybe I should say, what is more important than regional ties is understanding how to operate within that kind of university. Look, Clark Lee is a Vanderbilt alum, and that's a big deal. I think it's a bigger deal that he was coming from Notre Dame, where he understands what it's like to work with recruiting restrictions.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know this is going to be kooky to us sports fans, but there are some universities who actually care about academics. Let's stop a minute.
One of my best friends from high school was an All-American offensive lineman, recruited everywhere, wanted to go to Stanford, and his dad, who is just, this backwoods Alabama electrician, sweet guy, but just had never considered college as a realistic life for his sons, couldn't believe that Stanford wanted his son to take the entrance exam? Are you kidding? He's a football player.
Right.
Hey, a famous and very successful college football quarterback once said we didn't come to play school.
That's
Damn
right.
Don't forget that.
Yeah, he wasn't going to Stanford.
No, he was not.
No, he wasn't going
And
to Stanford.
how'd that NFL career work
Yeah,
out
that
for
was
him,
a
by
great
the way?
career for our boy Cardell. But
Listen, he hung 98 points on a kid in the hospital in a game of NCAA football. He is a legend in my book.
Very true.
you know what though? That's when the karma of life gets you, right? Right?
It's like, maybe beating up on the sick kid shouldn't have been on my list.
I mean, listen, you go and win a national championship at a school like that. Granted, unfortunately for Cardell, he is stuck living in Columbus, but he probably does not have to pay for anything as long as he stays in Columbus.
Ever in his life will he pay for anything in Columbus? Absolutely. I'm with you. I don't think this is the start of something. I think this was just kind of a perfect storm where you got to get this guy out. Like you said, maybe Stanford hired Andrew Luck to can him. Andrew Luck is one of them at Stanford. I mean, he was trying to finish up what was his master's or whatever he was doing at Stanford after he left the NFL.
And it was like a hard degree, right, Tyler?
Yeah, it was crazy.
Architecture degree?
He was in architecture or something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It wasn't like, communications.
Very different from Matt Leinart. Do you remember what he took his last semester so he could play one more semester at USC?
What was it? I forget.
Intro to ballroom dancing.
Yes, that's it.
If that doesn't sound like a fake North Carolina class, I don't know what does.
So good. Well, I think, what was it? I forgot what Southern Cal or UCLA player in like the 60s or 70s, he had a quote-unquote part-time job that paid him a lot of money. It was snow shoveling.
What was the biggest BS class either of y'all took in college?
Oh, gee.
Ooh, it's a good one.
All of them.
I want to say I took a running class online, actually.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Nice. I took a history of American theme parks.
No.
Yeah, I also took a class all about the Muppets.
Now that's interesting.
This is where I should make sure everybody remembers I was a film major. So,
Yes.
Okay.
like most of my degree is like just total BS.
That's so good. The history of the Muppets. We're going to leave on that one.
All right, very good.
Hey, next week, we'll meet you back here at 1:15, my friend.
Yep, sounds good.
All right, good talking with you, pal. Dimitri Ravenos hanging out with us, talking some football. Northern Football, the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. All right, so Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway is still going. The pot's, what, like $275 now, I believe?
That's correct.
We've had 2 Grand Slams this year, though, so people are getting some, they're getting their bags, so to speak. All you do is go to 1075thegame.com, click on the contest, fill out the little entry thing. It'll take you a few seconds. Hit submit, and if there is a Grand Slam popped by a Gamecock batter, we will then, the next day on the morning show, or the next weekday on the morning show at 7:30 on the early game, pick a winner of the money. It's the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. We thank our buddies at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union for helping us out, and you can jump in on it right here at the game. Firehouse Sub Text the Hour coming up next, 803-404-6100. Halftime show. We are yapping football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors on the game. We'll give you a chance to text to win some tickets for Tartan Day South here in just a little bit. 13th annual, April 3rd to the 6th. So we were talking about this yesterday and how cool it is that they're like throwing big logs.
Telephone poles.
And I think they're picking up like, oxen and throwing oxen.
Yeah. If you think you're manly, go there and you'll feel emasculated pretty quickly.
I was going to say, you want to walk away a lot less manly? Tartan Day is supposed to be a lot of fun. Dave was a full endorser of Tartan Days yesterday.
Yes, he was. So
we're going to give you a chance to grab some tickets for Tartan Days South. Again, that is coming up April 3rd through the 6th. It'll be a text to win. We're going to do it here in just a few minutes. We'll take, we'll get it here in a minute. Let's get our Firehouse Sub text the hour first, 803-404-6100. What do you got?
In terms of easy college classes, Tim in Charlotte says Rocks for Jocks at South Carolina. I think it was Geology 101, but stupid how easy it was.
Rocks for Jocks.
I think, thinking about it now, I think I did actually take a jogging class online, which is funny. You just had to self-report what you were doing. But I did take, when I was at Georgia, one of the first classes I took at the journalism school was, I forget the name of it. It's one of those writing classes, but the professor, very nice guy, loved having him as a professor. He would give us worksheets with very easy things to do on it. Okay, circle what's wrong with this sentence and write the sentence better. And I remember thinking, I'm like, it's got to be more complicated than this, right? He's tricking us. And I was overthinking it, but it was just very basic, simple things. And I'm like, I feel like this isn't college level.
Write your name correctly.
Yeah. It'd be one of those a sentence with the wrong there in it. And you just had to correct the there. I'm like, I feel like we're a little past that. Maybe not.
I had a health class. It was the easiest health class in the history of the world. It was early 1900s health behaviors.
Oh, okay. So cigarettes and leeches, right?
Yes. I mean, weird stuff like, did you know how many people died of diphtheria in the late 1800s? I mean,
oh, God.
What a way to go.
Yeah, it's back then, if you got a stuffy nose, sorry, that's it.
Yeah, you're done. Chronic gastritis was the cause of death.
Better write your will. Those people that died of diarrhea in the 1800s.
It's like, Jimmy's got gastritis. Oh, no. Yes, he does. How much time does he have? Not much. Not much.
You start coughing. Everybody starts planning your funeral.
That class, it was very easy and very bizarre.
Yeah. And that's the thing is again, you're paying for these classes in college.
Yeah.
And you're like, I kind of feel like I should be challenged, right? It should be harder than this.
Right.
I mean, I'm glad I'm getting an A, but I'm like, is this really worth the hundreds of potentially thousands of dollars I spent on it?
Oh, I remember I had one of those, what's it called? Not public speaking class, but it was sort of, I can't remember what it was called officially. It was a public speaking class. And you had to get up and do a presentation. Everybody did.
Yeah.
And again, I was a goober. I was 19 years old and hungover half the time. I mean, I did a deep, insightful spiel about the history of potato chips, and I had different potato chips in front of me to show the different, how potato chips have evolved, and I'm eating them, and I'm making
how potato chips soak up the alcohol from the night
exactly.
before.
And I was just being a goof, and I got an A, and I was like, really? I got an A on that? Seriously? So yeah, there were some classes where you walk away going, the good news is I just got 3 credits, but wow.
I had a really hard history class that we had the option of taking the final or writing an essay or something like that. I'm like, I'm not going to pass this final. Let me write the essay. And
Yes.
I don't even know what I wrote about, but I, finagled that thing 6 ways from Sunday, made it sound all nice and fancy, and I got an A on it, and I passed the class. I'm like, I certainly didn't know anything about what I was taught in that class, but I did enough to pass.
That's all that matters. All I cared about was getting a passing grade and getting the credits and moving on.
That's why we're here doing this.
Exactly. What great attitude. Kids, don't be like us.
Please don't.
All right. Texter number 6 gets tickets to go to Tartan Day South, April 3rd to 6th. Texter number 6, we need your information. Obviously, I think there will call tickets, too.
Okay.
So 803-404-6100, hit us up on the Firehouse Sub text line. Texter number 6 will be a winner, Tartan Day South. Come back. Tyler will take you through what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions next, right here on the Halftime Show on The Game.
And welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head along with you. Terry Ford will be back on in just a couple minutes. We'll let you know coming up at 2:15. If you missed it yesterday, Chris Clark from the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour sat down with Boaz Stanley, who, of course, is one of the new additions to South Carolina's offensive line, transferring in from Troy. Had a good conversation with him. Going to play a little bit of that for you coming up at 2:15 as a part of what's trending at 2 is we to look around at what's happening around all of sports. And I've started off locally with South Carolina last night. Another tough loss for Coach Mainieri's crew and the baseball team with 13-8, the final up there in Charlotte at Truist Field as they fall to number 21 North Carolina. That is the 4th loss in a row and drops them to 1-9 against ranked teams so far this year. And again, maybe we set the expectations too high going into the year, but we certainly expected them to fare a little bit better up to this point against some of the tougher opponents they faced so far this season. And last night, unlike some of the games this past weekend against Arkansas, they were at least competitive from the standpoint of putting 8 runs on the board. And Coach Mainieri said this after the game, typically when you put 8 runs on the board, you should be able to win those kind of games. Unfortunately, the pitching went sideways for them. 12 different guys took to the mound last night, giving up 12 hits, obviously 13 runs, and then 13 free passes between 11 walks and 3 hit batters. So that's a combination that's always going to result in a loss more often than not when those kind of things happen. And again, they were put behind the 8 ball going into this game because Jarvis Evans, who again has done a really good job in his midweek starts for this team, was thrust into a starting role on Sunday after Dylan Eskew got bunked on the head Saturday during Bratton practice and was not able to start, is in concussion protocol and all that kind of stuff. And, then you had to shift things around. And I give Evans credit because I thought he actually did a decent job pitching on Sunday in obviously a short rest situation and, kind of waking up that morning not being prepared to start. So goes out there, does a decent couple of innings for South Carolina. They were in the game, obviously, late in that one before things got away from them in the 8th inning, which unfortunately that trend continued last night, where the 8th inning went sideways for them once again after tying the game up 8-8 going into there. Here's Coach Mainieri after the game, just kind of talking about the disappointment that was the 8th inning once again going sideways for South Carolina.
Well, obviously, it was disappointing. We had a great comeback there and tied the game, had the good potential go-ahead run at second base. One more hit, we take the lead, and, we'll see if we can hold it probably. But I only wanted to use Brandon Stone for the 9th inning today because, he pitched on Friday, started that game, and, we need him obviously for this Friday, whether we start him or use him out of the pen. But if we'd have taken the lead, I probably would have brought him in the 8th inning there and tried to hold the lead with him for 2 innings. But when we didn't, and the game was tied, the plan was to use all these different guys because we were shorthanded with Eskew being hurt, and we were hoping we'd get a bunch of shutout innings for 1 inning from a bunch of different guys. Unfortunately, we only got 3 shutout innings out of 9, and we come back, fight back, tie the game, and then walk the leadoff hitter on 4 pitches and in the 8th inning. And, you just can't do that against good teams.
And again, you had, Bo Hollins go out there and tie things up with the double in the bottom of the 7th inning to set it at 8-8. And then within minutes, Russell comes in there, gives up a walk, 2-run homer. And so then it's an 8-10 game and things continue to unravel. Marlock comes in, can't keep anybody off the bases. Kimball comes in and, loads the bases, ends up giving up a couple runs there as well, one on a wild pitch. And suddenly, you go to bat in the bottom of the 8th and you're down by 5 runs. And Carolina was obviously not able to overcome that deficit and ends up walking away with another victory. Again, you've played 10 games against ranked opponents. You're 1-9 as of right now, which is just unacceptable. As a point I brought up before, anytime you have a first year with a head coach in your program, there's always a grace period, right? To where you say, okay, I know it might not be great now, but it's his first year, give him time, and so on and so forth. And I feel like if it were anybody other than Paul Mainieri, we'd be kind of having that conversation right now, right? Like, okay, I know it's not great right now, but give him time, all that kind of stuff. Can't expect him to be great right out of the gate. But when Mainieri comes in with the resume that he has, again, 1 million trips to Omaha, national championship, all that kind of stuff that we spent, the entire offseason talking about and hyping up and all those kind of things, you just expect him to come in and be successful. And he, set that standard in the press conference saying, hey, this isn't going to be, a multi-year build. We're going to come in, hit the ground running, and go out there and win and make the postseason and all that kind of stuff. And now we're sitting here roughly halfway through year number 1 in Coach Mainieri, and it's like, unless they just flip a switch all of a sudden, they're at risk of potentially missing out on the NCAA tournament altogether, not being looked at as one of the best 64 college baseball programs in the country, which for a place like South Carolina, that's unacceptable. So what can you change? Again, you've got an issue with pitching right now, and it's not from lack of effort, and it's not like Terry Rooney can just walk into the, pitching meeting today and say, hey, guys, this weekend let's go out there and try harder. And they say, well, we didn't think about that. Let's go do it. Like, no, there's a fundamental issue with keeping it in the strike zone. There's a fundamental issue with giving guys free passes, so on and so forth, that I don't even correct that. Because the deeper you get into a season, the less it becomes, hey, here's a problem, and the more it becomes, hey, here's what you are. Here's your identity at that certain aspect of baseball. And as of right now, for South Carolina, pitching struggling on a lot of fronts, and mainly the back half of the bullpen when it comes to late innings of games. So, unfortunately, it doesn't get easier. You've got the number 1 team in the country coming in this weekend with Tennessee, coming off of a national championship year last year, obviously. And, to avoid being 1-9 or 1-8 to start conference play and dropping to 1-12 against ranked opponents, you need to find a way to at the very least, win one game this weekend. But that's easier said than done. You get the game at home, which is a benefit, obviously, but there's no guarantee that you can go out there, especially with pitching like this. So, fingers crossed it gets better, but right now it's looking pretty rough. Coach Mainieri, by the way, will be on Carolina Calls coming up tomorrow night. You'll hear from him and hear his thoughts on what's gone wrong as of late and see what they can do to potentially fix that. I want to hit this headline. NFL free agency delivering this year more than ever, I feel like, in terms of just interesting, unique, and downright funny things at times. Earlier on this week, the New York Giants signed Jameis Winston to a deal, and it was expected, like, okay, that's going to be your placeholder quarterback until you figure out the situation, either by drafting somebody this year or looking ahead to next year with a much richer draft class and getting somebody then. Well, then they went around and signed Russell Wilson yesterday. 1-year deal, $21 million, 10.5 of that guaranteed to be the assumed day one starter there in New York, with Jameis Winston being his backup, Tommy DeVito being the third quarterback, and maybe still drafting somebody at third overall here coming up in a couple weeks with the NFL draft. Wild, interesting situation out there. Look, Russell Wilson had plenty of success in Seattle, had a lot of good players around him in Seattle, had a very good coach in Seattle in Pete Carroll. Goes to Denver, year number 1, disaster, right? Year number 2, better. Moves on to Pittsburgh last year. It was okay when he played, but nothing great. It's obvious that his best years are behind him. And right now, considering the fact that he's going to his 4th team and 3rd in as many years, he's officially reached journeyman status, right? And he's not looked at as somebody that can come in and suddenly resurrect an organization that's struggling. Again, they thought that was going to be the situation in Denver, kind of thought that was going to be the situation in Pittsburgh. It's very clear that Russell Wilson is not that guy. He's a stopgap, which is why they signed him to a 1-year deal. He's going to be there because he is a better option, in theory, than a Jameis Winston, who's going to go out there and probably throw 30 picks, maybe throw 30 touchdowns with 30 picks as well over the course of a season. He can protect the ball a little bit better. He's better than throwing out an unproven rookie quarterback day one. So, again, there's no long-term play here. It's just, hey, we kind of need another quarterback to fill this out. Let's go get Russell Wilson, which, again, is a far cry from what people were talking about with him a decade ago. It's really funny because Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers are the last two kind of quarterbacks in terms of big names in free agency. Russell Wilson obviously now going to the Giants. 10 years ago, those two were playing in the NFC Championship game for the right to go to the Super Bowl. And the Seahawks won on that crazy, Hail Mary play or whatever to beat the Packers and go on to lose the Super Bowl with the Malcolm Butler interception. We all remember that, to the Patriots. But now we're talking about these two quarterbacks as damaged goods, past their prime, and guys that aren't as attractive as they once were in terms of their ability to play. This now leaves the door open. It seems as though that means Aaron Rodgers is definitely going to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was meeting with them for 6 hours on Friday at their practice facility. What that ended up netting out, I don't know. But there's really no other landing place. But here's the flip side of things. If let's just say Aaron Rodgers doesn't decide to go to Pittsburgh, what's their plan then? I don't know. Again, they're an organization that's had consistency, if nothing else, over the years, with Tomlin famously not having any losing seasons. But they haven't been a Super Bowl threat in 7, 8 years. 8 years now. And I don't think adding Aaron Rodgers, much like adding Russell Wilson last year, is going to change that. You can still be decent. You can still win potentially 9 games and keep that winning season mark going. But nobody's looking at that and saying, oh, man, they're definitely going to be dangerous. Got to look out for them. They might make a Super Bowl run now, because Aaron Rodgers is not that guy. And neither is Russell Wilson at the end of the day. And again, everybody gets older. Everybody gets injured. Everybody slows down with how well they play. And those guys are 2 examples of that. And again, seems like Rodgers kind of the last domino to fall here as far as free agent quarterbacks go in this cycle for the for the NFL. Again, a little bit earlier on this week, actually yesterday, on the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Schooling and Heating, we get an opportunity to talk to a lot of different athletes for South Carolina. Chris Clark sat down with Boaz Stanley, who of course is one of the transfers coming in from Troy. Got to speak to him about his transition to South Carolina and his opportunity to potentially start at center for the Gamecocks this upcoming football season. I'll let you hear that conversation, a little bit of that conversation, coming up next as the halftime show rolls along. Tyler Head along with you. Terry Ford will be back in just a little bit on your Wednesday here on The Game.
And welcome back into the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Chris Clark here with Boaz Stanley from Gamecock Football. Another great opportunity here to chat with a South Carolina football player and one of the new faces for this year. Boaz, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm enjoying my start to be in Columbia, so that's good.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate you being here with me, man, and taking time out of your schedule to do it. First of all, let's do a little housekeeping here. You're from Georgia, and I know you've told me that you're from Athens, but not technically Athens. Is that right? Like, run that down for me.
Yeah. So I'm from the county. I'm from is Oconee. So it's like 15 minutes away from Athens. So that's why I always say Athens, because I'm right outside of it. So that's where I went most of high school. And I'm from Parkview, or I was born in Parkview, which is near Atlanta. So those are the two main spots that I lived growing up.
Tell me about seriously, interesting name. Like, do you go by Bo, or does your family call you Boaz, or do you go by a nickname? Like, what's the?
I honestly go by both. I feel like recently I've been going by Boaz more, but I don't know. It's been it's kind of always been whichever one people say first. Like, I think half the team calls me Bo, half the team calls me Boaz. So that's kind of we just go by both. We got, we have a Mo who's on the team, and so I'm whenever they say that, I'm I turn my head, but then I'm I just got to go by Boaz so that we don't get anything mixed up.
Well, we always like to ask guys who have, either an interesting name or a nickname. There's been a couple guys named Debo at South Carolina, or whatever name. But where did your name come from? Because there aren't tons and tons of Boazes, in Georgia. Yeah. I don't think.
No, there's not. I've only met I think I've only met one other Boaz.
Yeah.
But it's from the Bible, so that's where my parents got it from that. But that's where they got it. I don't have. It's not like a family name or anything like that.
Yeah. No, that's what I was going to say. You don't find a lot of Boazes in Georgia. You do find them in the Bible. You would find them in Israel, etc. But that's cool, man. Yeah. Very cool. So transitioning, to your time here at South Carolina. Well, let's look back to. So you entered the transfer portal after spending some time at Troy. What went into that decision of, hey, I want to enter the portal. I want to kind of test the waters and see what was out there? Did you feel like you were just maybe ready for a jumping competition, or what was it that led you to the portal?
Yeah, I think it was, I wanted to, especially I guess one main reason was I wanted to try to get a little bit closer to home, so that me and my wife could just be a little bit closer to home, be able to go back and see everyone a little bit easier, because we're both from Athens. And also, obviously, I wanted to try to play in the SEC, because that's a Power 4 team that's right around where I live, or where I'm from. Yep. So that's kind of what I guess was thinking going into the portal. And then obviously South Carolina reached out once I got in, and I was that's 2 hours and 15 minutes from Athens. So I was kind of worked out perfectly that situation.
You had an interesting, I would say, journey to get all the way to the SEC, because you were a standout in high school. You actually I'd kind of forgotten this, actually. You went to Georgia Military College, where actually a lot of great college and NFL players that have come from that program, a lot of Gamecocks that have come from that program. And then went to Troy. But when you look back, what do you think of kind of this journey you've taken? It's not been, you see more and more of that, honestly, right? Especially with the portal guys who went to a smaller school, then jumped up, or they went JUCO and jumped up, or something like your situation. How do you kind of look back on that now?
I think it was just a really fun experience. I loved going to GMC. It was just I think it was a great way for me to kind of get my feet wet playing at the college level. Because like I feel like it was just good to be able to go somewhere, and then I played 10 games and just kind of got some experience really playing all three positions. And then that's when I switched to center, because I played tackle in high school, and then I kind of played guard and center at GMC. So I think it was just like a good experience for me to have. I always tell people I would never change going there, just because I think it's like it was a fun experience, and I think it was just good for me developmentally to go and just play somewhere as a freshman in college.
How different is it when you think back at anybody who's ever been to, South Carolina's indoor practice facility, the football operations building, the weight room?
Yeah.
Like how different is Georgia Military College weight room versus what you got at South Carolina now?
It's a little hard to compare, I think. There's a lot of there's a lot of, I guess, history at GMC that it's just like they have a bunch of, really it's just like some racks and some weights, and that's all they got in there, and you just go in there and it's old school workouts. So I think it's just like it's really hard to compare, because obviously we have so much more than there is at GMC, but it's like, I don't think when you go to JUCO, you're not really like, oh, we have to have a bunch of facilities or anything like that. But I think it's definitely very hard to compare the two, because of the vast difference between.
We were talking about that the other day, man, because when they put out that video on the Gamecock football social account of the dead hang challenge, at first I was like, well, God, man, like that's a lot of even when you're splitting up the workout groups, I'm like, that's a lot of dudes hanging. Like, how did they do that? And I was like, oh yeah, they have like 70 racks, that you can hang from probably. So when you got that many, you can put in that much work. Yeah,
that's and wild. There's probably like at least two pull-up bars that you can hang from for each rack. So it's like it's usually got two groups going and you're good.
So staying with that, what have you something that we hear a lot from guys who are freshmen or transferring in from a different level is just the difference in the workout regimens, and really just the entire strength and conditioning, and I'd loop nutrition in there too, right? Like the access that you have to food with Yemi Rodriguez and his staff, Luke Day and Jamil Walker and Chip Morton and their staff. Like, what have you thought about getting acclimated to that environment and the job that those guys do preparing you?
I think they do a great job. I've had a lot of fun just doing all the new stuff, because I feel like it's a very unique program. There's not personally, I haven't really done a lot of the stuff we've done here before. And I think it's just it's been just great to go through that, I think. And especially with, obviously there's all the people that have been here for a long time, and who went to the combine, which you can just see that they're different, with Nick and just like everyone else who did that. But I think it's really fun. And also Yemi, he's showed me a lot of stuff that I don't think about, just on the nutrition side of working out and making sure you know what to eat after you work out and before workouts. And I think that's really been an extra thing that I didn't think about, honestly, when I was coming here. That's just kind of boosted my just training and recovery and everything even more than everything else. So I think those are that's something I guess not a lot of people think about, or maybe some people do, but it's something that really gives you a good, I guess, competitive advantage if someone doesn't have someone like Yemi.
Do you feel like this might be hard to classify as you continue to get more and more developed, but you have played football for a while now, counting your time at high school, junior college, Troy, and now getting into things here. But how close are you to feeling optimal, if that makes sense, like the best version of yourself, whether that's like height and weight, conditioning, like all that stuff, like where are you at in that process?
I think like probably weight wise, I'm probably right where I need to be. I'm 315, so I think that's around 315 to 320 is probably the best like weight for me. That's what I feel like best when I'm practicing everything. Strength wise, I feel like I'm probably like 80%. I don't know. I feel like I'm always every year I've always gotten stronger, so I don't really know how to classify that. So hopefully I'm not at 80%. Hopefully I'm at like 60%. That, and then I think honestly I feel like just like technique wise or being sound and all that, I feel like there's always something better that you can get at. And I mean, there's always something in practice, one little thing that you can get better at. So I feel like that's kind of a hard thing for me to say, just because, I mean, if you talk to Coach Teasley, you probably point out like 10 different things that I need to get better at. So that's kind of hard for me to say about that, but yeah.
All right, we're going to dive a lot deeper into actually just what you said. I want to get your thoughts on how things are coming along in the early days of spring ball, your thoughts on the O-line room, Coach Beamer's culture, and so much more. We're chatting here with Boaz Stanley on the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Take a quick time out. More with them on the other side.
Time to check the greatest day in the history of the world, which is today, March 26th. Old school, a couple old school, like always. Very interesting. A lot of NCAA championships were won on this day.
Yeah, back when March Madness was actually contained to March.
Yes.
Didn't spill over into April.
Weird. Let's see. This day in 1944, St. John's won the NIT. First back-to-back winner of the NIT on this day.
When that one mattered.
When people actually cared about the NIT. 1946, the legendary Hank Iba's Oklahoma A&M Aggies beat North Carolina for their second straight men's title.
Oklahoma A&M is now
Oklahoma State.
That's correct.
Look at that. And North Carolina is now
North Carolina.
Look at you go.
There you go.
Look, listen to us. We're trivia experts. Also, Kentucky won a national championship this day in 1949. I do believe Adolph Rupp was the head coach. And the Kansas Jayhawks beat St. John's this day in 1952 for the national championship. A lot of national championships.
One of those is not like the other. St. John's, Kentucky, Kansas, and Oklahoma, now State.
Yeah, Oklahoma A&M.
Yeah.
This day in 1979. This was the start of the change in the NBA happening in college. This day in 1979, Michigan State beats Indiana State. Magic Johnson for Indiana State, Magic Johnson for Michigan State, Larry Bird, Indiana State. Indiana State was undefeated.
Yep.
And they played Michigan State for the national championship, and Michigan State was just better. They had Magic Johnson, a dude named Greg Kelser, who was a first-round pick in the NBA draft by the Pistons. Indiana State had Larry Bird, and some dude named Larry Bird.
He was the whole team.
There was a guy on that Indiana State team, and again, my top of my head doesn't work as good as it used to, a dude named Alex Gilbert, who I think shot 27% from the free throw line. The next best player was a guy named Carl Nix, who didn't play in the NBA. So Michigan State was just better. And the Spartans won the championship. Judd Heathcote, I think, was the head coach. This day in 1979. And why did that do anything for the NBA? Because Magic Johnson and Larry Bird going into the NBA. That national championship game, I still think, is the most watched national championship game ever, I think, Tyler.
I'm looking here. Larry Bird led the team in scoring in every game but one. By the way, they scrimmaged the Soviet national team in exhibition before the season started. They won that game.
Yeah.
But after the first game against Lawrence College, Larry Bird led the team in scoring in every single game, and more often than not, was also the leading rebounder, too.
Oh, Larry Bird obviously is a Hall of Fame NBA player, but Larry Bird in Indiana State, his last couple years in Indiana State, he was ridiculous.
Yep.
Ridiculous. So that started when those guys got to the NBA. I say this all the time because this was, I believe, the most watched NCAA championship game, might still be. Those guys are ready-made stars for the NBA. And once those two cats got to the NBA, it led that league to the most popularity it's ever had.
Yep.
And they played each other in the finals, I think, 3 times. I think LA won 2 of them. And then it led to the next, wave, which was Michael Jordan. But Bird and Magic saved the NBA. The NBA, I would tell the story every now and then. Magic Johnson's first trip to the NBA Finals, I think, was 1980 against the Sixers. An NBA Finals game was on tape delay after your late local news.
Insane.
Think about that.
That's how little the care and interest overall was.
Yeah, I mean, the NBA had gone through a huge drug scandal in the late 70s. It was a mess. The NBA was a mess.
And look, that started what we now know is true today. It's a star-driven league. Mm-hmm. If you have stars, people watch. Because it's a running joke that, like, the free agent stuff and the offseason is more exciting and more interesting than the games itself. Because, again, the NBA season is forever.
Yep.
They play for 12 months out of the year, it feels like. And until it gets into the playoffs, you can miss half of it and really not miss too much. But when you have LeBron going out there setting records, obviously guys like Steph Curry and Draymond Green and Giannis and obviously Luka now and all these kind of guys, when you have stars that can make appointment television, flipping channels, hey, look, the Lakers are playing, I'll go watch LeBron and Luka play or whatever it may be. Like, that's the hook that the NBA's had for such a long time. And again, if all those players stop tomorrow, a lot of people would stop caring about the league.
Well, here's the funny part about the NBA. we have this idea that the NBA is like the second most popular sport, far and away.
It's
not.
Nope.
Major League Baseball and the NBA pretty much get the same ratings.
Yeah.
It's just Major League Baseball's audience is 50 to dead,
Yeah.
while the NBA's audience is under the age of 40.
Yeah.
So ESPN chases that under 40 audience because that's the audience that's going to continue to grow and spend money, where the Major League Baseball's audience is going to end up in assisted living.
Yes.
But the NBA is not this, wow, everybody watches. No, they don't. That's the interesting part. But why does ESPN give the NBA $1 billion TV deal and look at Major League Baseball and say, we'll give you $20 a game?
Yeah, because NBA has the 18 to 49 demographic that every league and every semblance of television, fawns after.
And you have stars. And the stars affect the game more in the NBA than Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Major League Baseball, a star gets 4 at-bats a game.
Sure.
Maybe 5.
Well, and you've almost also kind of conditioned yourself. Because here's the thing. In the NFL, if you're the fan of the Ravens, it doesn't matter who's playing on the Ravens. You will root for the Ravens. No matter a good, bad, indifferent, in between. It's the Ravens. You cheer for that team. Most people, when it comes to the NBA, yeah, you have people that, like teams because of the city and all that kind of stuff. But so many people are just are fans of certain stars. So they're going to follow LeBron from Cleveland to Miami, back to Cleveland, to the Lakers now. Like, again, they're not Lakers fans. When he retires, they're probably going to not be Lakers fans anymore. It's this weird thing that the NBA has that no other league really does.
It's stars. You're right. There'll be a dude with every LeBron jersey of every team he's played for. He's a LeBron fan. Whoever LeBron plays for, that's a team he loves. It's become such a star-driven league. And like you said, the offseason's more interesting. It's a soap opera.
Sure. Oh, gosh.
The NBA.
When we talk about this NBA regular season, we're even talking about the Luka trade more than any other games that happened.
Yeah. Think about, okay, ready? What's more memorable to you? The Luka trade or name me a game?
Luka trade.
Yeah, I mean, because there's so many games, it's very tough to go, oh, that game was so memorable. No, there's 82 of these things.
And every one of those games ends up being 138 to 135, and it comes down to who made one more three-point shot.
So it just, the NBA is it's very weird how the NBA has evolved where they get, I mean, like my son loves the NBA. Last time he watched a whole NBA game?
Probably a long time.
Never.
Yeah.
You know what he watches?
Highlights.
He goes to YouTube, watches highlights.
Exactly. You listen, you can tune into SportsCenter in the morning, and they're going to run through every NBA game that happened the night before. You get caught up. You didn't need to sit down and watch any of those games.
That's the world we live in with the NBA. That's what the NBA has become.
And guess what? In those highlights, you're going to find out what LeBron did, what Steph Curry did, what Anthony Edwards did. You're going to find out what the stars did, because that's the conversation point. We made that joke earlier about Stephen A. Smith talking about the March Madness and how does that affect LeBron's legacy. Like that's really the conversation people have when it talks about the NBA. It's not, hey, LeBron, struggled last night. He was 40% from the field. What's going on here? It's like, no. Who's better, him or Michael Jordan?
Right, because that's always the low-hanging fruit is legacies, GOATs, all this other ridiculousness. It's all they do when they talk about the NBA. They never talk about the actual games and teams.
Which, if you ever hear me having the LeBron-MJ debate, you have the permission to bonk me over the head.
I will never have it.
Me either.
I refuse. Because I always say this, if you're a LeBron fan, it's LeBron.
I'm not going to convince you.
If you're a Michael Jordan fan,
yeah.
I mean, and usually it's the generation you grew up in.
Exactly.
Goofs like me grew up in the MJ era. If you're under 40, you grew up in the LeBron era, and I'm not going to change your mind, you're not going to change mine.
Exactly.
That's just the way it goes. So why have that conversation? The minute that starts, I leave the room.
Same.
I just have no desire for it. This day in 2011, Butler returned to the Final Four, the win over Florida in the Southeast Regional. And that Butler team, back-to-back Final Fours. And what if the Gordon Hayward half-court shot goes in?
Then we have the greatest Cinderella of all time.
Yep. Because people forget something. Watch that highlight of that play. That ball hits the backboard, hits the front of the rim, and pops up in the air for a second. What if that thing comes down in the net? We're having a totally different conversation.
Yep.
Also this day, in 2006, one of the best runs ever by a Cinderella to the Final Four happened. 2006, George Mason, coached by Jim Larinaga, stuns number 1 seeded UConn in overtime to become the first 11 seed to reach the Final Four since LSU in 1986. Of course, NC State last year reached it as an 11 seed as well.
That's right.
But that George Mason run was incredible. They had the guy, I can't think his name, he was like 27 years old. He's a former paratrooper, and he was playing at George Mason because after he got out of the Army, he had college eligibility, and that George Mason run was a thing, man.
Yep.
Very cool. Very cool. That's the greatest day in the history of the world. There you go.
Boom.
Done. Easy. All right, we will do our handoff with our buddy Jay Phillips. Handoff to the postgame show, sponsored by Little Pigs on Alpine. Also, our Firehouse subtext. The hour is coming up next at 803-404-6100. Halftime show here on the game. Halftime show. Tyler Head, Terry Ford, Jay Phillips is here. We'll do our handoff, sponsored by Little Pigs on Alpine. First of all, our Firehouse sub text of the hour at 803-404-6100. What you got, man?
Yeah, and Jay can get in on this conversation about easy classes we took in our academic career. A nameless texter says, senior year in high school, took 2 English electives instead of an English class. One elective was literature through film. All we did was watch movies.
I like that.
Wow.
So any super easy classes in your high school or college career? Suspiciously easy?
Yeah, my senior year, same kind of thing, I guess, in high school. When I say I hate math, that's really doing the hatred of math a kindness. And so I didn't want to take another math, and I took depending on who was it, like there were 10th or 11th graders in kind of like a world history, but it wasn't like, it's hard to describe. Like it was like sort of a precursor to world history, because like I had a world history class as a senior too, and that was hard.
Yeah.
But I took another one because I liked history, but I wasn't going to take math, and I couldn't take 2 English. To that point, I couldn't take 2 English classes, and I'm kind of glad because my English class was also really hard as a senior. But I did well in it. It just was hard. But yeah, so that's about it. And I actually didn't end up doing as well as I probably should have.
And we had what Dimitri was saying, because he was a film major. He took a class called History of the Muppets.
That sounds great, man.
How cool is that?
Speaking of which, dead serious. And I think this is awesome. I know some people would probably roll their eyes, but the commencement speaker this year, now, sadly, I say sadly because I really want to go and I can't, because my oldest is a master's graduate, not a undergrad. The commencement speaker at the University of Maryland.
Who?
Kermit the Frog.
No. That's fantastic.
That is
fantastic.
The video they made for it is spectacular.
That's great.
And she texted this morning, and I said, "Can I go?" Like I don't know what day hers is relative to this one, but I am not kidding. Like
That's cool.
I want to go.
That is so cool.
And I don't know if they're doing it. When she graduated, it was the spring of COVID, I guess, and so that was the spring of 21, right? Yeah. And they did it at the football stadium, but we were all spaced out. You know, you're supposed to be.
Right.
And I don't know if they typically do it in the gym or if they do it still at the. I don't think they typically do it at the football stadium, even though it's a really big school.
Right.
But if they do it in the arena, then I probably have no shot. But if they're doing it in the football stadium,
You might be able to.
then
Because that sounds fun.
oh man,
Kermit the Frog, very cool.
I would love the history. Listen, I was a Muppets. I still love them.
Look, I love those 2 dudes that sit in the balcony.
Yeah.
I love those old guys.
They're great.
They're great.
Didn't they just get rid of the Muppets experience at Disney?
Well,
What?
Yes and no.
What?
That was really cool.
Oh, it is 3D. The 3D movie was great. They're putting Monsters Inc. there.
Okay.
And I have read that they're going to take the 3D movie. It'll be gone for a bit, but they've got a section of that park that is really kind of underused, and they have like some just exhibits from time to time, like animation stuff. And I think they may be looking to move that over there. And here's why. Speaking of Muppets, again, I know this because I'm a Disney World junkie. The Aerosmith roller coaster.
Oh, I love the Aerosmith rock and roller coaster.
Rock and roller coaster isn't going away as a ride, but it is being rethemed.
Yeah, because they don't have the rights to Aerosmith anymore.
Well, not only that, but Aerosmith dudes are all like 80, and kids don't know who Aerosmith is.
Most 17-year-olds go, "Who the hell's Aerosmith?"
But it's going to be Dr. Teeth, the rock band, the Muppet rock band.
Oh, really?
With Animal and all those guys.
I can deal with that.
Yeah. So the Muppets aren't going anywhere. So I don't think that 3D movie will go away, but it was awesome, man.
That's sweet. All right, what's coming up early on the big
Jack
show here?
Veltry's going to join us in the 4. We'll do a little baseball and football, but we're going to talk a lot of baseball because I got a number that's going to make people go, ugh.
We had a Twitter poll that would make you
I know. That we're going to use that, too.
Yeah, that's pretty eye-opening. Tyler, nice work. Jay, post-game show with Elijah coming up next here on The Game. Appreciate you hanging out with us.